Good morning, folks. It's your favorite toaster. Hope really is so back Sunday. A sunny morning. I'm having a cup of coffee, and I felt once again inspired to do a video. And hopefully, you will find some valuable gold nuggets in here, which I hope you will. All right. And this morning, I was thinking about obviously magic, rituals that I will have to do that I did in the past, and some other concepts. And in this video, I decided I wanted to talk about retrocausal magic and the attainment of true knowledge. So let's begin with retrocausal magic. Retrocausal magic is something that you could say is affecting the past with your magic. There's one way on which you could use that, which is something that already happens, already has occurred, and you now get to do the ritual, and you change that event, and that will cause different effects in the present, and of course down the line into the future as well. I'm going to give you examples. Give me 1 second. And then the other way on how you could use that is essentially you're in the now, but you don't have the means yet, or you don't know how to fix a certain problem or create a certain situation, and you decide that in the future, when you have the knowledge, resources, time, energy to fix this problem, you will then do it. You decide that now, and the problem is dissolved for you. Of course, you wouldn't forget to actually fix it in the future. So retrocausal magic is not only a possibility, it's a reality, and it is possible because linear time does not exist. It is really, I talked in some other videos, I talked about perception filters and the iceberg that people have and how they look at reality. And you have to understand that in this society, in this culture, you have been trained to look at time really in a linear fashion, which really doesn't exist at all. It's cyclical. It's anything but linear. You can even see that with particles that flow out of a tube before they have been sent in, and many other things like that, right? They always try to say that only applies to the microscopic world, but that's absolutely false because it applies to all of reality. So I could give you many more examples, but you can do your own research and you will see that retrocausal effects are actually a reality, and we can utilize that in magic. Magic is, at its base, you could say the affecting of an energy field around a physical event. Let's keep it there. Of course, there are other layers as well, but for our simplicities, for the purpose of simplicity, let's keep it at that. We want to affect physical events and events that occur in the physical realm by affecting the energy field around it. So retrocausal magic then is what? Concrete example. You just came out of, let's say, a negotiation where it was about you wanted to buy this company for a specific price, or you wanted to negotiate a certain financing for something or whatever. Excuse me. And it didn't work. Now, what you would do is, retrocausally, you would, a couple hours later, or days later, or whatever, you would do a ritual. You plan it in the following way. Either you find a spirit that is specialized in retrocausal magic. You will find that by studying their descriptions in their office and all that stuff, or you do it yourself. And what you will do is you will send energy back into the past. You will couple that energy with a specific intent, so that the energy blueprint around that event is rewritten to match your intention. So you would change that energy event, or the event, or the energy around that event, into the person has agreed. Usually what's going to happen is, slightly before you actually go about doing the ritual, or even inside of the ritual, or as you're doing the ritual, or just slightly after, you will receive a message or a phone call or whatever, where the person is going to be like, yeah, after careful consideration, I see your point, and we agreed to follow your suggestions, and basically everything goes through. That's usually what will happen. Now, this is not without consequences for the macrocosm, or for the greater system of events. So what you will find is that during the ritual, there will be kind of weird phenomena that will often take place, which is, example. For a short amount of time, the rain will seem to start falling upward rather than downward. Okay, or it will just freeze in the sky as it is falling down. Many events that essentially are, you can sense that things are messing with time itself, with the timeline, and your perception of time, first and foremost, because perception and reality are interlinked. So as you are affecting a timeline and the causality there, the chain of events, this will have ripple effects across the board. No ritual that we do is just a small, tiny thing that only has effects on this very thing. You're really dealing with a greater system, because everything is interconnected, and you will see these things happening. You will also see things be rewritten in really, really rare cases. No, let's not go into that. This is on camera, so I'm not going to talk about that. But you will see things happening during the ritual, and also slightly after, until kind of like this whole timeline thing has calmed down. Right. Now, okay, so the next way on how to do retrocausal magic would be, you have a problem right now, something that you want to fix in the moment, but you don't have the energy, time, or the knowledge on how to do that. That can be handled in the following way. But in order to be able to do that, you first and foremost need a connection to your daemon. That's the most important thing here. Why? Because in order to, what you're essentially going to do is, you're going to open a portal to bring influence from the future, from your future self, into the present moment. That cannot happen unless you have clearly defined the circumference, if you will, or unless you have limited the number of timelines accessible and available to you. And by doing a ritual like this in a context of knowing your daemon and having your life and the vectors in your life lined up with your daemon, this is, I don't think, doable, because there might be so many different things that happen in the future that it's very, very hard to affect this specific timeline, this point in time, in the way that you want. So, but let's assume you have connection with your daemon. You know your daemon. Now you have cut out infinity into a smaller piece, which is connected to the realization of your daemon. There's a limited amount of timelines, and now you create a gateway, which is essentially a communication line between your future self, still within the circumference, or the timelines that are in harmony with your daemon. And here you can open a communication line with a future self that already has the power, knowledge, energy to send into the present. And that will usually happen through a sigil. I recommend that you take the time once and create kind of like a physical anchor for that communication line with your future self. And for each new problem that you have, to create a new sigil and something, once again, anchored in the physical. And your future self, usually the problem is the energy, because let's say something's occurring today and you need it resolved, but you don't have enough time to put enough energy into that ritual. Let's say it's a big problem and you would have to do 10, 15 rituals, because that's the amount of energy that is necessary in order to tilt that stuff in your favor. You know, time is of the essence. That's not always possible. So you would be able to fix that by creating this gateway that is connected to your to that sigil and to this current event that you want to affect in a specific way. And then in the future, you can send that energy through that gateway and it will resolve that issue for you now. Now, retrocausal magic is something that will be done, in my opinion. You would not just do that for no reason. That would be like life crises or things that are really, really, I don't know, it's like a big issue that is really threatening something important in your life. Then you would probably use that, because there's always an upside and a downside. Everything in this universe has an upside and a downside. And retrocausal magic has a downside as well. Because yes, you will see these phenomena that I mentioned earlier, and you can't mess with time without consequences. Which means what? See, there was already, let's go back to the earlier example. There was already a certain timeline unfolding, okay? And this is an enormous amount of energy that you have now kind of like nullified, erased, if that makes sense, okay? It's not that you're jumping timelines. This is bullshit. That's not how this works. There was an actual timeline unfolding, and you have to kind of like balance this out and restructure reality backwards. Now that will create kind of like a shadow universe, if that makes sense. You know, you can explain that in terms of antimatter, you can explain that in terms of many things, but the point is you have nullified so many energy vectors, and they are not lost. They're just in the invisible, and each one of those rituals will create kind of like a new shadow universe that is really incomplete. It's just floating around there. It's a really messy thing. You can peek into that, of course, in divination. You can even go there in astral travels, but it's kind of like it's hard to describe what you experience there. But the point is, in order to not be bothered by that, because every type of energy can have an effect on you, you would have to find a way to neutralize those vectors that you just created. Neutralize those energy vectors that you basically expelled out of the physical manifestations in your life. And there are ways on doing that are more or less safe. But that is not, that goes beyond what I would cover in this video. That's something for people that study with me long term and have reached a level where they can actually consistently and safely do this stuff. So that's retrocausal magic. Very useful. There are more ways on how you could do that, of course. Dream magic is a great platform in which you can do a lot of retrocausal magic, where you mess with the timeline and other things. But this is obviously not for beginners, neither is it for most magicians, because most magicians just don't have their dedication to consistently do dream magic or lucid dream. But I think, in my opinion, an advanced magician should be able to do that, and it should be part of your toolbox. Retrocausal magic, very powerful, very useful. but once again, not for dabblers or amateurs. I mean, you can try, but you're not going to be able to make it happen. I guarantee you. Well, try, yeah, but nothing's going to happen. Which is good. Once again, I think there's literally this self-protection mechanism in this universe, in this system of reality, where unless the person has developed themselves internally to a certain level, with the things that I keep mentioning, discipline, honor, ethics, and all these things. All of these are the keys that unlock new realities and new levels of this game. And it's a self-protection mechanism. If any person, if anyone, just any individual would be able to do these things, it would create complete chaos, and this whole game would end very, very, very fast. So great power comes with great responsibility, my friend. And that is very true, man. Uncle Ben, he was right. Power, responsibility, power, and ethics, power, and all of these things go hand in hand, you see. So now think about all these, like knowing what I just said, think about all these clowns out there with their Satanist aesthetics, their threats of curses and this and that and the other. They're all clowns, man. They're nothing. They're actually fighting themselves. That's what they don't realize. They're actually fighting something within themselves, and they will eventually destroy themselves. Okay, so now the next thing that I wanted to talk about in this very short video, I think this is going to be very short compared to the others that I did last week. I wanted to talk about the true nature of knowledge, or how to make knowledge your own. And there's obviously a family with a with a kid that doesn't like his breakfast. I think that's what's going on there. It's like I'm in an Airbnb, and over there there's a family which is dealing with a small kid. So hopefully it's not too loud on video. Okay, so knowledge. See, the way, depending on how old you are, 20, 30, 40 years, you've been trained to deal with knowledge in a specific way, which has been essentially repeating facts and then regurgitating them. It had nothing to do with actually acquiring knowledge. It's more about repeating facts. And that is because the school system is designed to create good little slaves. But in order to understand something, you have to be able to apply it in your own life, you see. And the way most people apply knowledge is they collect facts still, It's not just something that happens here, obviously. It's something, and when I say here, I talk about my channel, my videos, and all that stuff. Because I guarantee you, most people listen to what I'm saying here, and they're never going to apply it, ever. Because they don't know how to apply knowledge. Because their exposure to knowledge and facts and all that stuff was essentially, I read a fact, I try to remember it in my short-term memory, and then I'm waiting for the test. This is also obviously the overwhelming majority of so-called occultists. You call that armchair cultists. They're essentially bookworms. Don't get me wrong, I love books, I read. You could call me a bookworm. I'm actually a nerd, believe it or not. You wouldn't, that's probably not what you would think about me, but I'm actually, I'm a nerd. For real, I'm extremely intelligent and not to say that nerd and intelligence are always the same thing. That's not what I'm trying to say, but what I'm actually trying to say is that I love knowledge, I love books, but there's a difference between knowing facts, which is what most armchair cultists actually do all day. They collect facts. Listen, I can't, this is why I stopped listening to all of these, to a lot of, let's say, podcasts out there. Not that I did that too much in the first place, right? But sometimes you listen to these guys and they turn this into a fucking academic challenge. And that's really what it is for them. They don't even believe in magic. It's just an academic historical study. they have no or close to none practical experience with magic, and it's kind of sad because you know, the arrogance these people carry, the arrogance. It's pathetic, which goes a little bit deeper, you know, the cultural contracts, the Eurocentric worldviews that they carry, you know, this compartmentalization and all of these things. It's well, thankfully that's coming to an end. You know, I'm glad that this is falling apart, but it has to. Everything that is not true has to collapse at one point, you know. And Jesus Christ, the fuck! Look at this fucking. Wow, this was an insect this large. Horrible. Anyways, before I start rambling here, so here's the thing. True knowledge is you need to be able to apply it to your life, and you do that by making it part of your working knowledge. You make that part of your working knowledge by absorbing, first of all, the facts, and then finding ways on how to apply that in your own life. You need, in order to truly understand something, first of all, you have to be able to look through the lens of those facts and see them taking place in your own life, and then you'll be able to apply them. Okay, so example, when it comes to occultism, for example, if you go to the average person on the street that has been educated in the school system, and you tell them, okay, apply the elements to your life, they will not understand anything that you say, because they're so left-brained and they're so in compartmentalization that they're not gonna know what you're fucking talking about. And I'm telling them, okay, listen, the 4 elements represent different principles, and you can explain everything based on elements. Okay. This is the beginning of breaking through the veil. You see, you have to start thinking holistically. You have to be able to transcend physical reality. You have to be able to look through the superficial. So, in terms of this video, explain this video in terms of the 4 elements. You know, well, Earth are the boundaries that are set in the beginning. You know, the title of this video. I'm speaking within defined boundaries in terms of a subject. That's Earth. That's solid. That gives us the boundaries within which the speech can flow, which is water. There was a certain cadence. There was a certain flow to all of this. Which is, water. Air are the thoughts themselves that have been communicated. Communication is a very airy thing. And have been communicated through words. The thoughts that were transferred through the air quality. And then you have fire, which was, you know, there were moments when I was more passionate than others. You know. So this is the beginning on how you decode reality differently through perception models. I talked about that in other videos. And perception models include and paradoxes as well are gateways into the other worlds. Once again, the other worlds are just frequencies, a different set of frequencies. You know, there's a lot more I could say here, and but I won't, because those that didn't get it till now, they won't get it even if I keep talking for like 7 hours. You see, but it all breaks down to you got to cut through the illusion and look behind the veil. All right. So let me finish my coffee. Hopefully you got something out of this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.